is up, world? It's Thursday, and it is the last, or was the checkout day. Yesterday was the last day of instruction for CCST teachers. Checkout day today. I would say we're free for the summer. That's not exactly true, given that we have some now mandatory trainings we must do to figure out when that pops off. So, yeah, we're free, but we're not free, which kind of is interesting that we're getting emails the last day of school about things that have to be completed before August. So, yeah.
One of the things people said to me a lot when I was leaving education was, "Aren't you going to miss summers off?" And I wanted to be like, and I often said, "You are mistaken if you think teachers get summers off."
And no truer is that statement than the fact that the turnaround is so short this year. Like literally, we're doing summer school, or some of us are doing summer school, and we'll be locked in battle with time for the month of June. You'll get off for July, but you have mandatory trainings and videos and all things to watch. That really makes there's not really an off season, right? Like athletes get off seasons where you can go train yourself and get better and improve your craft, so that there's a leap you can make from year to year. No, it's
And no
just
off season after one of the most horrendous school years ever.
facts.
It's like, it was exhausting and you barely made it. Let's give you no time off and start early.
I love you, and teachers are important and all that wonderful stuff, and you guys survived, but yeah, we're just gonna throw you back in there, and yeah, hopefully you survive again, despite the fact that there are less of you now. It's classic, man, classic material. Anyhow, we're gonna go and deal with the branding situation again. We're kind of look at it webs through a literacy angle, because um, one of the things that I was talking to a teacher friend. He was like, "Oh, that's really cool, but how would I do that in ELA?" I was like, "Number of ways, but I'm gonna give you like the most uh, apropos, standardized. It is really going to like make it pop in a kid's idea, or in kid's head idea of why branding. Not just kids have their own brand, but using the concept of branding and logos and stuff in this regular content. I think is kind of dope. So we'll look at that. And as our ask a developer software developer question today, Webs, you have spoken quite a bit about Doctali's framework and whatnot like that. Um, the last time we talked about that, we looked kind of at the idea of there's choice in there. There's the way to customize your deal. There's kind of in terms of your job and your gig, like when you're working with clients and whatnot. How do you utilize the idea of choice and customization in order to enhance the products or the apps or whatever projects you're working on with your clients, or do those clients already come with those ideas where, hey, we want there to be the element of choice here, or the element of customization? How does that process work from a professional software developer's point of view?
I'm going to go full consultant on this and say it depends. And that's because, I feel like there's a couple different angles and ways of looking at it. One is every time we go to solve a problem, there's an element of customization, because a lot of times you go into a client and you kind of have to, just like you go into the doctor and you have to tell them their symptoms and then they diagnose what's wrong with you.
Mm.
It works the same way with a client who, like, say, wants to build an app. That's a really common thing, right? Like, oh, I want to build an app. Okay, well, first you have to figure out, like, should you even build this app? Is there a market for it? Whatever. Then let's say yes, you should build this app. Well, then should it be an app, or should it be like a website that's very mobile friendly? It
Mm.
all depends on the situation. And in that respect, everything is customized. It just all depends on the market. It depends on technology trends. It depends on where the client themselves is, that kind of a thing. Then there's another element when you're actually designing the product of how much customization do you add to it. And I think you can add customization both from the perspective of, like, I just want to be able to change my, I feel like Microsoft and GitHub and I think Google even does it for some of their suite now too, is you can switch to dark mode, right? Like that's an element of customization for the end user. But it's very select customization because you can't make your interface any color you want.
Mm-hmm.
It can be light or it can be dark. So there's like optional customization in that respect, but there's also customization that can be offered purposefully. I think I shared with you earlier a link to a tool that allows you to choose color schemes that are accessible, that have high contrast and meet WCAG standards. So you can also create customization that's purposeful and useful, as well as like hitting that optolysis, like personal customization thing. So there's kind of like two different angles to customization. There's the working with a client, making sure it fits, the solution is fits to their problem. And then there's the on once you start to build the thing, how do you introduce these options and customizations for the end user? Because ultimately, like the more, I don't want to say the more you can customize it, because there is a threshold where you can over customize and then people get overwhelmed by options. And actually, an app that does this really well is Carrot Weather. So if you've ever used Carrot Weather, they have a bunch of little hidden options in Carrot Weather. One of them is you can choose the level of snark for your weather bot. So it can be not snarky at all the way up to like it like shares death threats with you or something, like it really hates you. That whole company, I don't know if it's Carrot or what, but they do customization stuff really well. You can customize the icon. It really gives you space to kind of play with making the app fit specifically for you. So customization for the customer makes it more engaging. But if you give them too many options, then it becomes overwhelming and they don't want to engage anymore.
Facts. I think that's one of the things where people like choice, but not choices, right? And having the option of that's why light or dark mode. All right, look, I either going to have this way or the other way. If you let me do it in fuchsia mode or taupe or what, it becomes this. I'm going to waste so much time making decisions that are in the grand scheme insignificant, not actually getting to the business that we're supposed to be getting to, right? So it's kind of Neapolitan ice cream when it comes down to it. Super. So the other kind of idea that you brought up there was conversing with people, right? Having this, there's a conversation that needs to be had. Like, can you go a little bit deeper into what that looks like when you're talking to a client and conversing about what their needs are?
Yeah, sure. So like we kind of have two initial phases when we're trying to work on that. One is called discovery and one is called inception. Discovery is where you answer the question, should we build this thing? And that's where you have a lot of questions that you ask the client about things like, who do you view as your biggest competitor? What do you know about in the market space? So if you're talking about I don't know, like going back to the weather app. So what other apps are there in the weather space that you might be competing with? What is the market like? So is there a market for weather apps? Are people willing to pay for this? What are people looking for as far as features in their weather apps? You want to talk to the customer, who your potential customers and end users are. You want to know things like, is there an open API that we can access to use to build this weather app? So you engage in those conversations not only about the product itself, but about the surrounding market of that product as well. Like it's important to capture the context. What happened before, what happened after, what are the technology trends? Yeah. So if trying to think of a good example of technology trend. Food delivery is a really great example of seeing shifts in technology trends. So at one point we had to grow our own food, and then we got together and said, just these people in our community will grow food and they'll share it with everybody else. And then we said, we're going to take all that food and put it into a store where you can go and purchase the things that you want. And then we said, we can pay somebody else to deliver our food. Now we have things like meal services and Postmates and Grubhub. And so you've commoditized that ability to get food in certain instances, and considering food deserts and income levels and all that kind of thing. But as a technology, you've commoditized the ability to get food. It's pretty standard operating procedure that if you call up Domino's, they will bring you a pizza. There won't be too many snafus in that respect. So getting that whole picture and the full context of how and where you're building this thing is really important, and the conversations that you have not only with customers but with the people that are like that that are your customers as well as the end users, to capture all of that data and everybody else that might touch it along the way. And
Mhm.
all of that feeds into this funnel that says, paints this picture of, okay, yes, there's definitely a market for this. We should definitely build this thing. And then you move into inception where you say, okay, now how do we build this thing? What are our thin slices of work that we're going to do first? Because if you try to do layer by layer, it's going to be months to years before you get anything done. So you want to make sure that you're thinking about like, what's an MVP? We've talked about MVPs a bunch. So what's the like most basic version of this that I could create to get it in front of consumers to get feedback?
All right, cool, cool, cool. So that kind of leads us into like the first topic here and the idea of a design brief, right? So, um, one of the things that I encourage very much, and this is one of the things we're going to this is how we're going to apply this to not only ELA, but this could be applied, the same concept could be applied to social studies, to science, to any of the core subjects that you're talking about in which you're reading for knowledge, you're observing anything, etc. Um, Going back to the aptalysis framework or that concept, or homo ludens, if you're somebody who has read Huizinga, that idea of play, and that I have not the idea of not just play, but taking on a role in a game in which you have to take over. You have to personify the abilities of a particular professional. So whether that be an archaeologist, whether that be a writer, whether that be a graphic designer, whether that be a software developer, pushing kids into roles where they are no longer acting as themselves, in quotation marks. The reason why video games are so popular is because you assume the persona of someone else, right? I become Laura Croft, I become Mario, I become whatever, and my goals are their goals. Our goals are aligned, and we want to be successful that way. So, kind of looking at the idea of a design brief puts you in the role of a designer, an inventor, a architect, a software developer, whatever's necessary to get the job accomplished. Enforces a student, a teacher, whoever, to understand the roles and responsibilities of that said profession, right? So if I wanted someone to be a software developer, in order to do that job correctly, I would have to know what a software developer does, right? And what the processes that a webs would have to go through in order to solve a problem. So you're forcing students to, and one of the things to also do is not give those kids those roles and responsibilities. Google is vast. Students will find information. Students will go and dream up information about stuff. We can talk about, is that accurate or is it inaccurate? It's a really really cool idea to have kids role play in that scenario. Any comments on that, Webs?
No, I think you're absolutely right. Like, I definitely saw this even when I was in the classroom, because I remember I did a long term sub gig in fourth grade, and I remember we did archaeologists. So when you said archaeologist, it like triggered a memory of like, oh yeah, I did that with students. And it is, they really, because if you think about it, like, right, that's what childhood is about. I remember role playing like, oh, I'm the post office, or I'm a teacher, or I'm this job or that job, and that's like naturally what kids do. So why would you not like lean into that and give them that ability to role play that particular profession and have some fun with it?
But also, that's what cosplay is, right? Like you have adults who spend thousands of dollars on costumes to look like somebody else, and to create techniques that really make you look like Wolverine, or make the shield that Captain America made, or whatever, right? So there's a lot of that is inherently a human. That is a natural thing to put on the cloak of someone else in order to achieve their abilities, I guess, right? So you've got a lot of like weird. Look at that, like the cool. One of the cool things about like history is like John Keegan has a very famous book, History of Warfare, which is an amazing book if you're someone who's into military history. Mr. Vogley, my high school history teacher, used to quote Keegan all the time in school. So I've got 3 or 4 copies of the book at home. There, three of them are in plastics. I never open them. Then one is the one that I go through and I read and whatnot. But learning about a lot of the rituals that people would do in order to ensure that um, their cannibalism, in order to take the abilities of another warrior on the battlefield, that was all kind of weird things in which people would go and attempt to acquire the skill sets of other people that they thought were powerful. Again, this is not a a school thing. This is a natural phenomenon that we need to make sure pops off. So, with that being the case, we're going to look not at a text first. We're going to look at something in my childhood that was huge, and Webb's we're pretty close in age. I'm assuming that you also saw Peter and the Wolf, the little animated cartoon, when you were a little kid.
Maybe I don't remember the cartoon, but I remember the like uh classical music song.
Yep. So
Did
Peter
they
and the
make a
Wolf had
cartoon out of
a
it?
there was a very cool Disney actually did it. It's very cool. It's on YouTube. We're not going to play the actual deal, but I want you to. The powerful thing about Peter and the Wolf was, as someone who was not very musically inclined, that every character had their own instrument, right? It was a customized thing, and then in the cartoon especially, it went through. Here's Peter. This is what Peter sounds like. Here's the wolf. Here's the instrument that the wolf is. It was really powerful for a kid to see that. Um, and as you see here on the screen, the video exists. David Bowie, I did not know that he actually narrated that, but David Bowie is there narrating that one. But it's a very old film. Another teacher, Mrs. Eleanor Hamilton, my music teacher, the greatest music teacher in the history of music teachers. Fight me if you want to disagree. She would play this deal, and being able to, we were asked to, when we identified which instrument with which character, we were asked to close our eyes, and then it was like you had to create this move when you heard the do 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 do. You're like, oh, that's Peter coming. What is Peter doing? He's walking through the woods, probably because the rhythm of the instrument kind of led yourself to this realization of, okay, what's happening in the scene right now, and that is a form of branding, right? The sound of this character is this character doing some action. Go ahead, Webbs.
Oh, sure, because and we see this all the time, right? Like there are jingles from our childhood, no doubt, that like just get stuck in your head. For like 2 weeks, I kept singing this old commercial that I remember from when I was a kid. It was an advertisement for Michigan, and it was like, "Yes, Michigan with people." Ta, 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 ta. Like I can't remember all the words, but like the music sticks in my head. Or theme songs. How many people? There are two: the X-Men theme and then the Airwolf theme. Ba, 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 ba,
Yeah, yeah,
ba,
yeah,
ba, ba,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
ba,
yeah,
ba,
yeah,
ba,
yeah,
ba.
yeah,
You know, like music sticks with us, and it's the same idea. Like you hear that theme or you hear that jingle and you immediately know, oh, that's this particular product or this particular thing or whatever.
and too often we eliminate sound from classrooms that are not music classrooms, right? We That's
Mhm.
not a place that we go. We're not interested in kids making music or coming up with ideas in that vein. And I always think of Peter and the Wolf because of that experience in Mrs. Hamilton's class. Always stuck with me in terms of that is definitely just pure branding. When you see Peter on the screen, you hear, I forget which character is the French horn. You hear, and then it also stuck with us with the woodwind instruments, as opposed to the percussion instruments, as opposed to the was it woodwinds, percussion, strings, all that kind of stuff, right? Again,
Brass.
I am not a music person, but this is still something 25, no, older than that, 30 years later, that I still remember from this lady's class, right? And so, that being the case, one of the things that in the ELA classroom that you could challenge students to do, especially older students who consume music, is, as they're reading, what is the theme song of said character? What does that sound like? And why is that theme song something that applies to this character? What are the characteristics of this character that lend themselves to this particular song that you're giving them? Why would Ariana Grande come on when Winnie the Pooh steps into the scene? Like, what about Winnie the Pooh says this is an Ariana Grande song when he comes inside of the and starts eating this honey, right? So forcing kids to use those higher level thinking skills to brand characters in a story, first of all, gives you that Peter and the Wolf effect. I'm going to remember the characters because when I hear that song, oh, I remember I gave that song to Winnie the Pooh when I was in third grade when we were reading Winnie the Pooh and Tigger 2 or whatever it was. Go ahead, Webs.
Oh, it happens in TV shows and movies too. It's called leitmotif. Like certain, you hear this a lot. If you watch any movie in the MCU, the characters each have their own leitmotif, and you can hear it throughout the different movies and TV shows in the Marvel universe. It's also really common. Like the Flash does it a lot. Like there's a specific leitmotif for the Flash. There's a specific leitmotif for the Flash and Iris. Like the leitmotifs are all over the place. You hear them in non superhero related stuff too. It's not just that; those just happen to be my examples. And then I feel like the direction this is going is Edgar Allan Poe.
Facts.
Okay.
We're gonna get to Poe eventually because I have a
Yes.
different example for Poe. Anyway,
Okay.
but again, the Peter and the Wolf deal, especially when kids who perceive and consume music are going to be able to name artists and name songs and have a wealth of stuff there. The other thing that we'll kind of look at, and I just thought of this right now, is you can embed Spotify into Canvas. You can embed an Apple Music playlist into Canvas as well.
Don't I have to pay for it though?
Spotify, you wouldn't have to pay for it. So you can use this free Spotify account and play the thing right through there and have no issues. Apple Music, the kids only get a snippet of the songs, but that's also powerful. Just a little bit of the song rather than the entire song. Cool, you're going to listen to the first 15, 30 seconds of the song. What do you think about that song applies to XYZ? So those both Spotify and Apple Music playlists and SoundCloud and any other music service you have on the web can be embedded into a Canvas instance. So kids, you're probably going to be dealing with older students in this vein, the secondary students who probably already have Spotify accounts, and you want to have a rubric for you don't want words, songs that are going to have explicit content and stuff applying to it, of course, but giving them that option, I think, adds a level of sexiness to your lesson as well, where kids are going to want to do that in order to, kind of customize the soundtrack for a particular book. Go ahead, Webs.
Engagement. It's that personalization. They get to bring a piece of themselves. One of my favorite assignments ever, I believe it was Miss Beavers or maybe it was Miss Donnellan. I can't remember, but shout out to my high school English teachers. We had to pick a song that was significant to us, share the song lyrics, and talk about why it was important. And the song I chose was "How Could You Want Him" by the Spin Doctors. And I know a friend of mine always tells the story like he thought it was really funny that I was like the only kid that took it super seriously and like had this long explanation and broke down the song lyrics. And it was, of course, like a song no other kid had heard of because I'm a weirdo. But that was an assignment that stuck with me. Like that was super fun being able to share a piece of myself and something that was important to me with the rest of my class. So going back to Octalysis, I'm going to harp on this forever. That customization and bringing in a personal part of yourself to share with a group is a way to increase engagement. So yeah, high points on engagement here.
Yeah, I mean, again, and music is a universality. So you also will have a situation where now you're going to be sharing genres of music across your classroom. So kids who might not listen to X genre might now be exposed to Somali music or mariachi music or oldies or Johnny Cash or whatever, right? You have this
Snotty nose
situation.
Raz kids.
What'd you say, Webs?
Snotty nose Raz kids.
Yes, you have a situation where you have a lot of that intercultural exchange as well, right? So that's the other thing with music, with movies, with cultural norms, having kids talk with one another. So okay, that's really cool. I'm gonna add that to my bag of tricks here, or my as I go and pollinate myself through the world. I'll drop those songs and whatnot with you. One of the coolest things that the coolest experiences that I had was moving high schools mid mid career. So I left high school, Banneker Academic High School, which I love, and I've got plenty of friends there and whatnot. So after my sophomore year, and started my last 2 years at another school, Parkdale High School, and Banneker wasn't the most diverse place; it was mostly African American. Going to Parkdale, there were everyone was there. It was Asian kids and Latin kids and white kids and black kids and kids that were were foreign and kids that were from different states. And being able to go and hang out with the emo kids and the jocks and the rock kids and whatnot, being an audiophile, that expanded my musical tastes in terms of I started to get into the Sex Pistols and the Who, and groups that I was not familiar with as a inner city black kid. Suddenly, I'm like, oh, and then you started hearing the riffs, and you're like, oh, that's sampled in this song, and that's it, and you started connecting things, and you start exchanging music with, all right, you're gonna give me David Bowie, all right, bet I'm gonna give you MC8, and we flipping back and forth, and suddenly you got this punk kid listening to Ain't No Future No Frontin' out of his car in the middle of the thing, and all the black kids looking at him like, how does he know about that song, right? So it was really really dope. Again, I'm an audiophile. I express myself through music a lot, and I like to. That's one of the first questions I ask people, like, what songs? What do you listen to? And people, I don't trust people that don't listen to music webs. I've only met one person in my life that she was like, I don't listen to music, and I was like, yeah, we can't be friends. Like it doesn't work. Yeah, that doesn't work.
You are probably a serial killer.
Most definitely, because that's just like not natural. Like it's like kids, it's like little kids that don't like dinosaurs, right? You like,
That's sus.
yeah, ain't too many of y'all that exist, and like, yeah, I got questions. Like, every kid I've ever in my entire career, dinosaurs has been one of the things. Like, you may not be a full on dinosaur file, but you are familiar with the Tyrannosaurus Rex and how cool he is and whatnot, right? Anyway, so get music, taking the ELA curriculum, taking your stories, your short stories, your novels, or whatever, and forcing students to add soundtracks and justify why this song is here with concrete examples of this character here, the characteristics of this particular character, and this is why I chose the song. Or chapter one, what would be the theme song of chapter one? These things happen, great. They kind of mimic how this song and stuff works. Go ahead, Webs.
Also, this is a situation where you would not expect everyone to have the same answer,
Facts.
right? So, a lot of the complaints I saw for remote learning were like, oh, but kids can cheat. They can Google the answer. If your answer is Googleable, it's not a very good question. So, this is a situation where one, it'll be very clear if students cheat off of one another. But two, you're getting the Kathy Hunt effect where like it's interesting because everyone's going to come back with something different. It's not interesting if everybody has the same answer. It's a lot of very much higher level thinking because you have to reason about, you have to first fully understand the content. So if we're using your chapter example, students are reading the full chapter. They have to really understand deeply what's happening in that chapter in order to choose a song and then defend the reason why they chose that song. Also, there really isn't a wrong answer. Like, unless they say, because I like that song, like they can have a reasoning about it. And even if their reasoning isn't completely what you would expect, it could still be like reasonable reasoning. And that's not something you can Google. It's not something that you can just go look up on a website or plagiarize or copy. That's, I think, the other advantage of using music is like plagiarizing the answer to a song where music is the answer is really difficult.
Well, and the fact that you can rubric it out and say you must have the concrete reasoning, define what concrete reasoning is. It's always important as a teacher to have an example. This is my example of a different book and a different chapter. This is what the deal is. Let's read this chapter together. This is Mr. Lang is saying that this is Stairway to Heaven fits this deal here. Let's listen to Stairway to Heaven. All right, here are the lyrics of Stairway to Heaven. Genius.com exists. So Genius.com has all the lyrics to most of the songs that are out or have been out. So Genius.com, you can actually look at lyrics and say concretely, this is what the deal is. And I will show you a very cool trick given Genius just because this is one of the tricks that I used the last time I taught middle school, which I'm going to be teaching middle school, so I'm going to be using this trick again. All right, so one of the things that's really cool about Genius is that, again, all of your general it really goes into news. The kids are gonna the kind of the danger would be the lyrics are unfiltered. They're unfiltered. Like the lyrics of the songs, the lyrics of the song. So you really want to be um, uh, very accurate about what songs you want to be using here. And so, say I'm gonna use like let me see, it's a good song that wouldn't have bad lyrics. So,
What's the song I was just, because you just had me thinking. I'm reading a book right now. Um, that is called The Seven and a Half Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. And one of the characters in it is a plague doctor. And it made me think if I were to pick a theme song for the plague doctor, it would probably be, what's the song? I come from the land of the ice and snow where the it was Thor Ragnarok.
oh, yeah, I know what you're talking. I
What's
don't know
the
what the
song
actual
I'm thinking?
title of that song is. I have no idea what the
It's
title of that song.
I'll think of it.
So the cool thing about Genius is that you'll see that certain things are highlighted, and when you click on it, first of all, it's like a Wikipedia in which the annotations can be reviewed or unreviewed, and it's someone's interpretation of what those lines mean. What have you seen? You got something? You
Hold on.
remember it?
Cause yeah, it was Led Zeppelin "Immigrant Song."
Indeed. So the yellow ones are all Black Thought. The actual artist says this is what the deal is here. But one of the things I do is this.
Oh, still got it. Thank you.
Okay. Why did you do that? That's really irritating. All right. So you come here so
Also,
you
I'm
get.
super happy that someone could guess the song based on my very poor quality singing
Hey,
of
man,
it.
hey. So I'm going to copy that really, really quickly. All right, cool. And what we're going to do is we're going to make our own Genius just by opening Google Docs. All right. Well, I didn't get the whole song. But anyway, if you put all the lyrics there, you can do the same Genius effect yourself, right? You can go and click and comment. All right, highlight what you want to do, what you want to do. I'm gonna go and take that out. Actually, highlight, right click, or just hit the plus up button, and the kids can comment right on there. This means some stuff. Exact same effect as Genius. Just everybody gets their deal. You can actually have, and this is the other kind of higher level situation, have the kids say, this is the theme song for chapter one. I'm going to copy the lyrics to that theme song chapter one and say, using the comments, what each part of that, the song that excuse me, the lyrics, the idea from the song that actually apply to the chapter, I want the comments there. This part goes to chapter one because Esmeralda runs from the witch and the witch catches her or whatever it is. And Black Thought is talking about don't give up because obstacles like failure and loss only act as motivation. I don't know. But super easy. Again, the only problem is explicit lyrics. So if you have a lot of hip hop fans, unfortunately, I'm a big hip hop music fan. Can't use a lot of those songs in the classroom because of things that probably get you fired if the kids were to repeat them in class. But it's another reason why you bring in classic rock songs, you bring in jazz songs. I think jazz is really cool because a lot of jazz songs don't have lyrics to them. A lot of classical music songs don't have lyrics to them. It's a feel, the change in tempo, the change in different instruments and stuff. How does that feeling match what's happening inside of um, the particular character, particular but that's why if you've ever seen Baby Driver, I love. I don't think it's a good movie, but I like the music and how the music sets up what's happening in that movie very, very well. think the movie kind of sucked, but the music was really really dope. And given that you had Run the Jewels in there multiple times, I think that was also cool. But I think they're the
I
perfect
think
sync.
too, musical style is a type of branding. Like, you know, when you hear Led Zeppelin, you know, when you hear Run the Jewels, like that particular style is another way of branding yourself. So if you have students writing songs, creating songs, that's a form of branding as well.
That's the other thing. So that's the other layer to add. It'd be, what if you can't find a song, you want to make your own song, an original song? Great, giving kids the space to say, I don't want to use anybody else's song. I'm going to write an original song to chapter one because I take piano lessons. I know how to use GarageBand. I know how to use Fruity Loops or whatever. And I just want to build my own song to this deal because why not?
That's one of my favorite things to do. I've done many a parody song for different projects. And in fact, just yesterday, I wrote a very classic, exclusive Grammy worthy techno song based on an inside joke on my team. It took me about 10 minutes to make it. It's
Techno
so
song
hot right
parody of
now.
which song?
Oh, this wasn't a parody. This was
Oh, it's
just
an
like a
original
techno
song.
song, an original song, yes, where I came up with my own beat and like techno bass line, whatever, and
Indeed,
then
indeed,
wrote my own words.
indeed, indeed. What is the song called?
There's a bug in the provider.
There's a bug in the provider. Indeed, indeed. You need to. Is the song already recorded?
Oh, it is, yes.
Okay, so we need to share that on our social media. There's a bug in the provider, so that other people
Okay.
can hear. There's a bug in the provider. That's
Let me see if I can put it on my SoundCloud.
indeed. There's a bug in the provider. Sounds like an ominous song. Indeed. All right, before we get into like the deeper, the Raven and whatnot, as I said before, you can go and throw Spotify into your Canvas instance with no problems on any page that you would like. So I've got a Spotify playlist here. Yeah, I don't care about that. I hate that. There we go. I'm gonna go and copy that. Mm-mm. Copy embed code. All right, cool. So here's my deal. Top right hand corner, cloud, embed code, submit. There it goes. All right. So all I need to do then is the save button. Oops. Sounds of image. Save. Bada bing. There we go. And you're talking about the Knight Rider theme is Knight Rider theme and Magnum PI. The code is two. A Team is code two. Those are my three favorite, I think, of all time. Secret Agent Man, I like that so too. That reminds me of my grandfather watching Secret Agent Man as a kid. But you can go and take this. Spotify generally the free version of Spotify works with no problems. Is another great way to put ambiance in your classroom. So if you wanted kids to, go ahead and open that in a different, uh, tab and listen to Spotify as they're going through. I don't work without music. I mean, I know other people that don't do that. I mean, I cannot work without music. So when kids, you know, and to be honest, I don't check people's music. So if they're listening to whatever they're listening to, I'm like, all right, I'm not gonna sound check you, bro. As long as you don't broadcast that you're listening to something crazy. Um, but like middle school kids, I know they're gonna have their headphones on, and as long as you're productive and know what you need to do, and your business, bro. Because Mr. Lane's not listening to school appropriate music probably either. So it is what it is.
Right,
Um,
I tweeted it from our Twitter account at
indeed,
Trust a Hoodlum if you want to go check out It's a
indeed,
Bug in the Provider.
bug in the provider. Indeed, I cannot wait to will there be a remix?
I mean, maybe
Maybe.
it's a pretty lengthy, song. I think it's a whole maybe 20-15 seconds.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we can look into a remix. 23 seconds. It's
23.
23
All
seconds
right,
long.
cool.
Yeah.
So there's a bug in the provider. Indeed.
Oh, I was wrong by the way. It's a bug in the provider.
It's a bug in the provider. It's just a bug in the provider.
Also, there will be mugs coming soon on
What
my
what
website.
what name did you record this under?
I just did a whole new account with my Google Webs at the Hoodlums, theintelligenthoodlums.com Gmail account.
So like, there's no like DJ Webby Webs or like, you know.
I mean, I do have another account that is has a couple things like spoken word poems on it.
Okay.
I can find that and share it too.
Indeed,
It's
indeed,
super entertaining.
indeed, indeed, indeed. All right, so again, the idea of branding, again, kids making their own songs, come up with their own, you know, monikers and whatnot in terms of the songs they build. One of the things that we do all the time, just for kicks and giggles, if you're not familiar with Incredibox, Incredibox is a very easy free. Actually, we'll share that one really quickly because even my little kids do the Incredibox. And Incredibox asks you when you share the song to come up with your own name. So you have all kind of little weird names kids come up with in terms of branding themselves. So if you're not familiar with Incredibox, this will work on your Chromebook without having to do very much. On the iPad, it will only work if you go in and you purchase the app. The app is like $4.99 or something like that. I love it. It's on my MacBook, on my iMac. I play around with it all the time. I don't know how to play any instruments, so I do have to, you know, rely on people's loops and stuff I can steal from other individuals. But the web version gives you the
I love
ability to do this.
Incredibox.
Incredibox is off the chain. It's a really cool. It's a necessary diversion from life. So the stuff at the top is all free. The ones at the bottom are locked, but the love is my favorite one to utilize. And
It's like the classic one.
yes, no, the classic one is the first one. The love is like, it's not the latest one, but it's the latest one that you can do for free.
Hmm.
And so I'm gonna mute myself so that we don't get any feedback here. But it's super easy. You got our nudist musicians here, and we simply take and drag. And by clicking on them, I can turn them off. I can drag these anywhere I want. Kids love this. Gives them, again, the customization, the choice thing is all there. You can go and record it. So you can record it the way that you would like to record it. All right, once I do that, the save, and again, who am I? I am DJ Ed Poe. Whatever. Call yourself what you want. Name the thing. My mom is amazing and dedicated to my mom. Excellent. I click it, it saves it. Don't use your real name. Choose a nice pseudonym. Export can only be done if you pay for the product. You can share the song though, which we encourage kids to do. Here's your mix link, and you could have a situation where kids are. This is a way they can craft songs for characters for relatively free. I copy that link. Use that link to turn into in your your Canvas instance, and suddenly we've got this little. You know, we are channeling our interwebs by creating techno songs for problems that happen at work or whatever. So super cool. Incredibox doesn't cost anything. You can, I mean, I use it K5. I'm gonna be using it in sixth grade as well, moving up to middle school. So it's a pretty easy household to deal with. Again, high engagement because kids want to do it. You know, generally with especially the kindergarten in the first. Hey, Mr. Lane, can I I'm finished. Can I go and do Incredibox? Yes, you may do Incredibox. I want to make a song for my mom. All right, great. Make a song for your mom. All right, so Incredibox is dope. Anything to add to that, Webs?
Yeah, I just the another way you could use it is to create a song and then have students either write lyrics to it or write about it, or what is their interpretation of what they hear. Like, it can be a great jumping off point for them to do some writing of their own as well.
Bet. All right, so one of my favorite websites in the history of websitedom is the Poetry Foundation, just because I like poetry stuff, and all the poems here are free, and they have a very cool magazine, and they've got stuff for teachers, lesson plans, and whatnot that are already created for you. But like public domain poems like the Raven, really dope to deal with. You can print them off, you can email them to people, you can do what you need to do. But they also have, again, the Common Core State Standard text exemplars are built into the site. You can deal with those things. I mean, it's a really, really cool website. There are audio poems, I believe. There's video poems. There are podcasts and stuff in there. So it's a website that there's not a lot of poetry that's taught in elementary school, especially. There's a lot of we don't, not to say we don't value poems, but like there's just not a lot of poem that's taught there. But anyway, there's really really cool stuff that's there, um, and I just think it's dope. Anyway, the Raven is a pretty popular poem. Most adults have heard of the Raven, or they know parts of the Raven. You've seen animated versions of it. You've seen snippets of it, or whatever. So we're not going to go into every part of the Raven poem. I chose the Raven because it was probably a poem that you're familiar with. Poe is kind of a personal favorite, even though kind of he wasn't bleak, but most of the poems that are very famous with him are bleak. I was just watching. If you have HBO Max, The Pit and Pendulum is on HBO Max. My favorite Edgar Allan Poe short story. Vincent Price. It's a great movie. Great flick if you're a movie watcher. Anyway, so Webb's, in summary, what is the Raven about? If we had to say what the Raven is about.
Oh my gosh, it's been ages since I've read it. If I remember correctly, like, dude is lamenting his lost love, Lenore, and then this raven is like slowly driving him mad.
Pretty much, right? And uh, the Raven says nevermore and stuff as he's talking about Lenore and whatnot. It's kind of depressing, but beautifully depressing because it's very well written. You can talk about stanzas with kids. So each of the stanzas is a sextet. So we have 6 lines in each of the stanzas. It's really really cool. I like the rhythm to it, etc. But we're not going to look at identifying, kind of breaking down the poem. What we're going to do is say, Webb's, this nameless person. So at no point is the person's name given the person who's lamenting lost love is never named, which is really cool. Now we have a
Mm-hmm.
situation in which we can make up a persona for this person. He has no name. We don't know what this person does for a living because it's not explicitly brought out. Go ahead, Webbs.
How do we know it's a he?
Exactly. That's why I said this person. I didn't say it was a he. I said this
You
person.
did. You did say he.
Okay, this person. That's what I said. This person before I said he. Anyway, this person. We don't know uh what this person's profession is. We don't know what city this person lives in. We don't know how old this person is. There's a lot of unknown things that are here that make for very very cool stuff because it allows us to very much make up stuff. So every kid, again, going back to Kathy Hunt, every kid should have a different answer to these questions. There should be no uniformity to it because there's no real uniformity to what Poe is at. Poe is not telling us directly who this person is, right? So could we go through the entire poem as a teacher? You probably go through the entire poem, looking at stuff, kind of having kids decipher. Hey, what does this mean? What is I believe purple curtain. Purple was I did, rich people had purple curtains. Purple's because of the fact that purple using purple dye was very very expensive from the Egyptian times, etc., etc. Could we intimate that this person is a well off person? Perhaps if I knew about the color purple. Um, December, it was a bleak December. In Las Vegas, do we get bleak December webs?
No, we don't. Not really.
So is this person going to be living in a desert, perhaps?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Also, probably not Southern California. We can kind of narrow that down. Probably not like a tropical island. We can eliminate that. Maybe it's like
Or
Russia.
Or could we go and intimate something different? Could we say that the reason why it's bleak is because Lenore is not with this person?
Could be.
And this person could be in a perfectly, it could be in a tropical paradise, but even the tropical paradise is not, I don't love the sun and the sand and the seafood because Lenore is not here. That's it. That's how badly this person's absence makes me feel.
This is, by the way, making my brain go wild with like the things you could do with just this. Like you could have them create, like draw this persona of the person they think wrote the poem and develop a whole personality around it. You could have them write a sequel where they're like over Lenore.
Fan fiction is wonderful, right? N.K. Jemisin, if you read science fiction, she started as a fan fiction writer. Now she's like the hottest thing in sci-fi. But you could go through and look at each of these things and have kids interpret this thing. They have to justify their interpretation. It's just not like, hey, this is the way I feel. Interpreting the justification for the deal. So let's say, again, your job as a designer, a graphic designer here, is to build a logo for the persona that is this person. All right. We could go and go through the entire poem. And again, this is going to make this something that may be drab and boring to certain students. Now I get this graphic design aspect to it where I'm actually creating a design brief for a persona of this nameless, genderless, geographic-less person who I can build as long as I have the resources and the evidence from the text in any way that I would like. Go ahead, Webbs.
I was also thinking, like, what if you built a playlist that Lenore sends to this person because wow, she is sorry about what happened?
Or maybe she's not sorry about what's happened.
Or maybe she's not sorry, and you have to justify the choices. Because for some reason, I think because of the purple curtains, I was thinking Purple Rain, and then I was like, what are the lyrics to Purple Rain? And then I looked them out, like, oh, this would totally fit because I never meant to cause you any sorrow. I never meant to cause you any pain. I only wanted to one time see you laughing. I only wanted to see you laughing in the purple rain.
But what happens if this is a Dante scenario in which Lenore doesn't actually exist?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Lenore is only in his head. Or her head, or their head. That Lenore doesn't exist. And at the entire time, this is some kind of fever dream of a person who wanted to talk to this person but never got the courage to actually do it, and they feel bad about it because now this person, idealized or not, is not available to them. And this is more of a poem of regret rather than a poem of loss. Because every time that when I was in high school and I read Dante's Inferno the first time, I'm like, oh man, this guy, wow. And then you start reading the biography of the guy. He never talked to Beatrice ever. He literally just looked at her from afar his entire life and idealized what Beatrice would be like to be with. He never talked to the woman, which is like mind blowing to me that like you would have 3 acts to the Divine Comedy and at no point in real life did you talk to this person.
Why the Raven is like the Sixth Sense, an essay.
Interesting. That also So there's lots of ways you could have kids brand this thing in a lot of ways with not just this text, but just like other, like anything that you're reading. It doesn't matter the grade level. Kindergartners could do something similar to this. There's a lot of picture books that leave things to interpretation. Very little text. Here's this picture. What else can we surmise about the bear, given the picture that the illustrator provided us?
And for folks who are like, oh, but what about standards? Well, every grade level, I think, has the standard about making inferences. So making inferences supported by evidence, this would be exactly that. And like you just shared a link with our group the other day about, this is the World Economic Forum that had the standards around like what students, teachers should be focusing on and what students need. And it was like creativity. What else was on there? It was like creativity, problem solving, grit, like logical reasoning, all the things that this an activity like this would do. In addition to you're getting high engagement because it's an interesting puzzle to solve. There's that personalization and customization that they can inject their own personality into the answer, and they can't possibly copy it because it's going to be very apparent that you copied it from another person. Not that they'd want to, because it's an interesting enough problem to solve that they're going to want to be engaged in it.
The thing would be there would be no reason for me to not want to opt out of the situation, right? So I'm not going to look over on Bob's paper, on Susie's paper, because I don't listen to the same music Bob and Susie listen to. Or I might want this song on the playlist that Bob and Susie like, nah, no, I'm going to go solo here. Or again, if I want to do collaborative, it's four of you. You have to have a 4-song playlist. Everyone gets to contribute a song, and that song has to be justified in the reasoning. I want to write about it. Great. We're going to do a Rolling Stone review, in which we're going to do a Rolling Stone magazine, and you're going to have a song a song that you would add to a playlist about the Raven or whatever story that you're reading. What is the thing that they read? What's the thing with the people don't die because they drank the water?
That book is creepy.
Yeah,
Tuck Everlasting.
yeah. So I mean, great. Tuck Everlasting wasn't like one of the interesting things about that. Our fourth graders read that, and I was not familiar with that book at all before coming to Deering, and so read the book, and I was like, this is weird. But my conclusion was like the Tucks are the villains, and so I asked the kids, I said, who are the villains in the story? And they said the man is a man in the brown coat or something like that. I was like, nah, to me, he's a good guy. He's trying to liberate the water. He's trying to give the water to everybody. Even if you have to pay for it, not having to die is, whatever. These people drank the water and have decided for the rest of the world, like, nobody get this water. That's evil, man. So what if my grandmother's about to die and I'm like, one drop of this water would save my grandma? And they're like, nah, you can't have the water because we have decided as gatekeepers not to give you the water because we think that living forever is wrong, even though we are living forever. That's messed up, fam.
Wow, hypocrites.
Messed up. And so what part of one of the assignments the fourth graders had to do is that they had to create from somebody's perspective inside of in the book, any character they wished perspective to justify why the water could either be given to people or not given to people as a public service announcement. And it was really interesting, some of the stuff that Mr. Lang, you're wrong. No, the Tucks are good people. I'm like, yeah, okay. Let my grandma be dying. Better come up with that water, homie.
It's super fun to pick the opposite side of whatever it is you think they'll probably pick. And then they get really passionate about defending whatever their thoughts are. And that's what you want, right? Like you want that spark of inspiration and passion and like that's what engagement looks like. And that's what you're aiming for. And not like, ugh, why do I have to do this?
Big
It's
facts.
another worksheet.
Big facts. So I mean, again, and we just we got about a minute, but we'll go over a little bit over. Everybody in the Clark County School District, regardless of what layer of the Clark County School District you are, from anyone from a janitor to a support staff person, whatever, if you have a Google email, you have access to Adobe Spark and all the stuff that's there. And one of the interesting things that we did to say goodbye, the kids had to make postcards, which was kind of dope. But one of the things to kind of, if you need inspiration inside here, there are templates inside here. So like we use postcards just to give kids ideas about stuff. And so you have
Did you have to first explain what a postcard is?
Yeah. And we just I kind of showed them postcards that I had that I sent my grandma and stuff from Taiwan, et cetera, et cetera. And like, it's from places that you go or where you wanted to go or whatever. But you have these really cool templates that are already built for you that you just replace the picture or replace the text or whatever it is. So the one I did for Pamplona was just based on this one from Havana. So if you looked at the deal here, the Pamplona looks just like Havana. Just took it. Anyway, we did the pernicious panulins on Sunday, but it's just as simple as saying, oops, yo, it doesn't have to be something super complex. We can have a scenario in which the kids just use text and icons, which is generally how we deal with it. I'm just gonna go to the next one here. I really love squares, so if I just did all that, the square stays there. If I want to make it a different scenario here, let me move
Oh
this
my
over.
god, I love the little crab. Oh, it could be a postcard from Maryland. It already has a crab on it.
This is true, but you can change those to any of those deals, banners or whatever, whatever. But we're gonna go and deal with the Raven just because that's what we're dealing with. So I'm gonna take that. Cool. So the nameless protagonist webs. Let's say this person is what? What profession, given what you know about the Raven, might this person have?
Well, we know that they have the purple curtains, so we're assuming they're relatively wealthy. So maybe they are CEO.
Okay. And I'm going to say, because this is at night, this is in the 18 or 1700s, 1800s, long time ago, I'm going to say, I'm going to use a candle. Just because I see this person sitting up all night worried about this person, Lenore. And I'm going to
Oh,
make
maybe if we're gonna go with the whole time thing, maybe they're like a steel magnate or something.
a steel magnet. Interesting.
Yeah, like what's his name? Who is the dude who owned the steel companies back in the day?
You have to look that
Oh,
up.
thank goodness for the internet.
Indeed.
Andrew Carnegie.
So let's say.
Oh, there's also an Indian steel magnate named Lakshmi Mittal.
Indeed.
Oh, there's another steel magnate who created the Bethlehem Iron Company, and his name is Alfred Hunt.
Now see how the rabbit hole sinks you down in there.
Oh wow! You know who the person who followed Mr. Alfred Hunt was as the president of Bethlehem Iron Company, which then became Bethlehem Steel?
Who was that?
Charles Schwab.
Indeed.
Now it comes full circle. I don't know what that circle was, but it's full now.
So I'm gonna call
There
this
you go.
lonely nights and weekends. That's what I'm gonna
Didn't
call
expect to tune in and learn about steel
it.
magnates.
Indeed. So I'm gonna call this lonely nights and weekends because
Oh, wait, why is it KNIGHTS?
I think like old rich dudes have like those knights and stuff, all the armor and stuff in there. Those their deals. So I'm thinking like that would probably be there, and perhaps the coldness of those steel armor also kind of like adds to the ambiance of the story.
Okay.
Um, and like nights and weekends, as somebody who's an older person now, when we first got our cell phones, right? What was the only time we could call people? Nights and weekends, Holmes. Like every other time, you had to pay those minutes. So even if he wanted to holler at Lenore, this person wanted to holler at Lenore, it was probably on nights and weekends, fam. And she's probably not accepting his calls either. So that's probably also problematic.
8:01 p.m. I was calling my best friend.
Indeed. And like, get in trouble if you call before that, buddy. Like, we only have 4 minutes left. Why were you talking to that girl for so long? Indeed, indeed. So it doesn't have to be something super uber complex. It could just be text, an icon, boom, 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 done. I justified why I call it Lonely Nights and Weekends. I had the idea, etc. You can have kids brainstorm stuff or whatever. Go deep dives into the text. Another thing that we've done quite a bit with our first graders and second graders. We have a garden, a lot of the elementary schools do, taking pictures of the actual plants or finding the icons for those plants and then giving the plants logos, given the adjectives or the characteristics of the plants, and building logos for sunflowers and watermelons and tomatoes, and really kind of branding those things is another thing that's really cool to do. Also, the insects that happen to be in the plants, in the garden rather. So your bees and your grasshoppers and your crickets, either taking pictures of them or using the icons that happen to be in Adobe Spark and building logos for those as well. So that's the science situation. Really, really easy. Webs.
So we've hit science and ELA. Social studies would work the same way. So if you look at historical figures or events throughout history. Like, how could you take Charles Schwab and build a logo for him as a steel magnate, or any famous person, character in history, whatever, um, president of the country or whatever. You could build a logo for them and then explain, like, why did you pick the things you chose, based on information that you know about that person. So science, social studies, ELA. Is there a way we can fit math?
Facts. So math. So in terms of what's a logo for the Pythagorean theorem, and why is that logo for the Pythagorean theorem?
Like,
Um,
clearly, we'd have to be a triangle, right?
who's to say that some kid didn't have a different way of looking at the Pythagorean theorem that makes sense to them, right? So that's the cool thing about logos is the swoosh from Nike doesn't mean anything. It's just somebody thought that crap up and now it's branded. The fact that, despite the fact that there are other tissue brands, what do we call tissue? Kleenex, period. Like, that's what it is.
When you injure yourself, what do you cover it with?
A band aid, whether it's a band aid, brand band aid or not, right? So, how do we go and have kids look at problems from a perspective that is, perhaps not mainstream, to come up with a logo that makes sense when one is able to explain it? So, that, um, uh, coming up with logos for answers to problems, right? So, again, 9 squared. Are there 81 dots on a sheet of paper? Are there do you make 81 stars? Like, how would one graphically represent that in order to do that? Or fact families. What are the logos of certain fact families? And why does that logo look that way? Are there a certain number of points on the logo? Or are there not a certain number of points? So, like, having kids really have to justify why certain things are the way, then I know you understand it. But simply saying 5 times 5 is 25, okay, that's rote memory. But do you understand what the relationships are between 5 and 5? I don't know. So to me, you cannot you can't prove to me that you understand something without producing something. Just rote memorization, and oh, we went automaticity. Okay, that's great that you automatically know that 9 times 9 is 81. Wonderful. Why? And instead
There's
of
a concept we have where we talk about, like, if the amount of effort put in is really worth the output you get. And I feel like automaticity of math facts does not really benefit on the other side. For the amount of effort a kid has to put in to memorize all of that, it's for what benefit? Like, especially now that we have calculators, like, there aren't too many jobs where you suddenly have to be able to produce your multiplication. And if there are, you're probably highly interested in math and are going to learn that anyway. So this obsession with, like, automaticity of multiplication facts, it seems passe. Like, it's not really a valuable skill when you think about it, the output.
Siri can tell me what 9 times 9 is faster than I can look it up, right? So I mean,
Yep.
in the grand scheme of things, hey Siri, what is 9 times 9? She's gonna tell me it's 81 in like 7 seconds or whatever it is, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it becomes it becomes a scenario where I want my kids to work on typing. No, you don't. You want your kids to work on producing some product in which typing is one of the ways in which I can go and input the ideas in my brain. But just learning how to type in a vacuum where I'm not actually producing anything other than following Mavis Beacon say the bird is on the tree. Like, okay, great, the bird is on the tree. I took typing class. Johnny Tynes, I hated your class. I hated your class. He's the reason why I hate typing. The only C I got in high school was in typing. A worthless, non-academic freak almost kept me off the basketball team. I really
Wow.
hate Johnny Tynes' class. Hated that class.
Also, I'll be honest, I've really moved toward voice to text for a lot of stuff because I'm really lazy. Like, even when I'm texting with somebody, I'm much more likely, as long as I'm in a place where I can talk, to tap the dictate button and just read out what I want to say. Because this, or even swiping, just, it's like, it's too much. Why do that when I can just, like, tap and then say the words?
But you still have a large swath of people who are looking back on their own childhoods and saying typing is this important thing. This is why the Chromebook is so unpopular. Not just the price; it has a keyboard, and you're like, okay, what kid uses a keyboard on their phone? Nobody. Who uses a keyboard? I I had bought an external keyboard for my iPad, but I'm going to tell you, I very rarely attach my iPad to the keyboard just because there's no reason to.
I work in a profession where we type all day, and there are a lot of very talented developers who hunt and peck. So if we don't need to learn how to type to be successful, I don't think many of the
There
other
are
people do
people who
either.
took typing classes who still hunt and peck, right? So
Yeah.
the typing class didn't help us. And again, Johnny Times giving me a C plus just made me angry. It didn't make me a better typist. It just made me angry. It made me further decide that screw you, Johnny Times. I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna type the way that I type. I have never been assessed for my typing in the professional sense with somebody looking on my shoulder. How many words can you type? No one cares. Um, it's not a skill. It's a skill that it will be dead very soon in terms of even being a thing. So wasting time having kids type just to type is worthless. Because again, I don't, as a technology instructor, I do not teach the kids how to type. I'm like, you got to do this. And guess what? The kids find the letters. You know why they find the letters? Because they want to do the activity. They find the letters.
Yep.
So it is what it is, man. So the branding thing doesn't have to just be kids make a logo for themselves. It can be kids looking at text and creating logos for characters, kids looking at how to graphically encapsulate math problems. What would that animal's logo be? If I had to
It can
do
be the audio piece.
audio, adding audio to the situation, all kind of, there's all kind, literally hundreds of extensions to this idea. And so really looking at it from that perspective, I think is super important. We are off next week. So no Sunday, no Thursday. We'll be back the week after that. I'm be teaching summer school, so I know I've got a lot of weird stuff to kind of present to people, and from the stuff we're doing in summer school. Next week is all photography, which is kind of dope. So it'll be interesting to have kids do self portraits and portraits of other people and stuff like that. It'll be interesting to see how it works. Um, but yeah, if we're gonna have like tips and tricks in Canvas the whole time. That's Spotify, embedding Spotify into your Canvas situation with either songs that are school appropriate, songs that are topical. So if you're reading a certain book and these songs from your own perspective go with this text, showing students that that's a way to be able to do that. If they have their own Spotify accounts for your kids that are 13 and older, the legal ones. I mean, I wouldn't encourage the illegal Spotify accounts, even though they probably have them. But you're talking about your high school kids, your eighth graders, kind of experiencing like going through that, and also like if you have your own sharing your own musical taste with your students, I think is something that's really. I definitely did that with my middle school students and playing songs very softly over the speakers and stuff that kids, hey, who is that? Mr. Like, oh, that's the Roots. Like most of my kids from West Prep, like all were Roots fans after a while because I played so much of the Roots and like, oh, that's really cool. Had a few the Roots I played a lot of. I played a lot of Raphael Sadiq, which the kids kind of like, who's Tony Tony Tony. So I was like, Tony 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 was a group that I liked when I was a kid, so I played a lot of that. But just getting them like into that stuff, Jimi Hendrix, all of those kids end up Jimi Hendrix fans at the end. Webbs, did you play a lot of music in your classroom?
Yeah, actually, one of my favorite assignments was there's one Aesop Rock song that doesn't have any bad lyrics in it, and we'd often do one of my favorite assignments was a breakdown of that song and talking about what they think is happening. It was Lucy was 7 and she wore a hat of blue beret. City born into this world with no knowledge and no regrets.
Mm.
So that was one of my favorite assignments to do. My students loved that song. Play it again, play it again, play it again. We'd listen to it like 3 or 4 times and for different things each time. So it's basically like close reading. They were doing close reading, but of a song. And they really enjoyed that.
Super dope, super dope. So yeah, we got it. We'll be doing some, everything's gonna be kind of Canvas related because the summer is short. The module, I didn't finish the entire module for the student related stuff for the logos. I will finish that because I have to have it for my class this summer anyway. I'll finish that and that'll go into the store. So if you want that module, it will be available probably in about a week. Little 4 or 5 days probably. Go ahead, Webs.
Also, if you want that delivered right to your inbox, you can sign up for our newsletter. We'll probably put in the newsletter so that you'll know when it comes out. So if you go to theintelligenthoodlums.com and sign up for our newsletter, you'll get it just delivered right to your inbox, and you can purchase it. I'm assuming probably for $20 like our other one was. And those are modules that you can just drop right into your courses. It's not like as teacher you have to learn it and then teach it to your students. It is not a train the trainer model. This is something you can just drop right in and use for your students in the module. No extra work needed. It's plug and play.
Bada bing. All right. God bless America. About to do the thing. That's all we got. We will see you in 10 days?
Yep.
Yep, 10
All right.
days. Hasta la
Bye, everybody.
pasta.